Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Friday?
Excited about St. John's.
First NCAA tournament win since 2000.
Yeah, it was big.
Looking a lot like that 1985 team that made it to the Final Four. We're going to talk about that later on in the show. We got a lot to talk about in today's show. So why not jump into it? We got some news that very well could break, probably not, but could break with this first topic of today's show, which is?
Yeah, it was reported Wednesday that the Vikings are not going to pursue Aaron Rodgers and focus on J.J. McCarthy at this time. Rodgers is coming off a season where he threw for nearly 3,900 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Do you think the Vikings are making a mistake by not signing Aaron Rodgers?
I don't think it's a mistake, and now this situation went from being annoying because we're waiting for Aaron Rodgers to now even more complicated because now we're still waiting for Aaron Rodgers. Adam Schefter came out recently and said it's still a waiting game. The Vikings, while they said that they're not pursuing Rodgers, emphasis on not at this time. There's still a pretty decent high likelihood that Rodgers could end up on the Minnesota Vikings by week 1, which I find utterly stupid. But as of right now, as of today, or about a couple hours ago, Rodgers met for about 6 hours with the Pittsburgh Steelers, meeting Mike Tomlin, getting to know, everybody around the facility and whatnot. And I immediately, now, I'm going to say this right now, and I've talked about this already on Tuesday's show, Cam Hayward came out earlier this week, and this was his quote talking about the Aaron Rodgers debacle with him waiting. I ain't going to do that Dartist retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. You can read the rest of the quote there. But we talked about this on Tuesday. This is the second, and my mic keeps cutting out here. This is the second player from the Pittsburgh Steelers that had an issue with Aaron Rodgers. The first one, which was a safety, I think it was I'm forgetting who exactly it was. It was a safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers who came out and says that Rodgers should stay retired. So, and Cam Hayward is not just some random safety. He's a foundational piece of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is a loud voice in the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. So the fact that you have a key piece of your team saying that you probably, maybe, I'm just going off the quote, he probably doesn't want Aaron Rodgers because of the fact that he's going to be waiting probably for a number of weeks now until Rodgers makes his decision. So I don't think it's a great move, but are the Vikings making a mistake here? No, because now the report is, well, it's not entirely off the table. They want to say that they want to move forward with J.J. McCarthy, and I think the key date here is, I believe, April 7th is where we're going to first see J.J. McCarthy and how he has progressed throughout his healing process and where he's at physically. And let's just say, he doesn't look great on April 7th. I think that's where you're going to get Aaron Rodgers and a legitimate opportunity. Now, this is no longer falls on, okay, the report is Rodgers is waiting for the Vikings to make a decision because they have at least made, I'm going to call it step 0.5. It's not a full step forward because now Schefter's saying, well, the Vikings are still very much in play for Aaron Rodgers. So I'm saying this is a half step. And now the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants, they now need to make their next step. They waited for Rodgers to make that move and wait for the Vikings to make their decision. And now that Rodgers is visited the Pittsburgh Steelers earlier today for 6 hours, if the Giants really want him, then you're going to need to tell Rodgers, hey, come here. Now, supposedly, Rodgers has no more flights planned or meeting with any other teams. So now it's going to fall on the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants because apparently the Vikings are still in play here. They're just not the active pursuers of Rodgers anymore. That's what my guess is. But I'm curious. Do you think, the lower third question, are the Vikings making a mistake in, I guess, rewording it a little bit and based on the reporting, actively putting Aaron Rodgers anymore?
Yeah, it's kind of a gray area there. But I'm not surprised the Vikings are, putting this off, a decision about him, preferring J.J. McCarthy. I mean, Rodgers is 41 years old. He's a history of not putting the team first. He hasn't had much success in most recent years. 2024 was one of his worst seasons. The Vikings drafted McCarthy to be their long-term quarterback. He played well last year in the preseason, so much so I think he likely would have been the starter over Darnold if he hadn't gotten hurt. And that injury, what is it? It was a torn meniscus, right?
Right. He didn't even know he had it. He had swelling in his leg.
How can it take so long to recover from a torn meniscus? Well, I would think he would have been, for quite a while now, be back at 100%. Maybe not back in the season, of course, but by now, I mean,
healthy enough to practice.
Here we are. It's March 21st. They're still worried about his injury? Come on, a torn meniscus. That's not like a torn ACL or something like that. I can't believe it's taken this long to recover from that, but whatever. The Vikings, I guess they still have some interest in Rodgers as a backup, but unlikely he would go for that when he could probably start in Pittsburgh and with the Giants. And I think that's probably why he's spending 6 hours with the Pittsburgh Steelers today, because he's thinking his chances with the Vikings are not so great. He might even still decide to retire. It's all uncertain at this point. We mentioned he meeting with the Steelers today. Diana Rossini reported that the Vikings are not out of it with Rodgers, and you mentioned that, the sweepstakes. They've tabled it, the discussion for the time being. They want to see where McCarthy is this spring. And you said April 7th is the key date.
Off-season workouts begin April 7th.
Where he's at physically and mentally before they conclude they are done with pursuing Rodgers. O'Connell, I think overall, he thinks McCarthy gives them a better chance to win. The fact that Rodgers is meeting with the Steelers today leads me to believe that Rodgers doesn't think he'll have a chance to start in Minnesota, and he wants a bird in the hand's worth two in the bush. So he's there with the Steelers. I think that's pretty likely that he's wind up there.
Well, what's interesting is that's why Daniel Jones signed with the Colts, is because he thought he had a higher opportunity to start in Indianapolis rather than having a rookie, and now a year two guy, who is, like you mentioned, expected to potentially start over Sam Darnold before, Darnold went on this 14-3 run, because he actually played pretty well in the preseason. We're going to talk about him in the next topic here, but there was an opportunity for McCarthy to take that starting job immediately, because they traded up to get him. They traded up one pick to go get him. And he played very well in the preseason. It's Sam Darnold, and at that point now, we could talk about, how it is now, our opinion on Sam Darnold now after the fact they went 14-3. But going into that season, Sam Darnold, while Kyle Shanahan spoke highly of him, and Kevin O'Connell, there was a reason why he brought him over there, Sam Darnold's history is being a journeyman quarterback, seeing ghosts with the Jets, doing okay but still not great with the Carolina Panthers, playing one game with the San Francisco 49ers, where it was the first loss, by the way, to Sean McVay with Kyle Shanahan. And that was at the hands of Carson Wentz being the other quarterback on the Los Angeles Rams. So the fact that was Darnold's career up to that point was, okay, this is a legitimate quarterback battle. Sam Darnold has that pole position because he is the veteran. He played okay with Carolina. So, and I think that, if we saw two more preseason games of J.J. McCarthy, and the fact that we heard him progressing at the speed that he was late in the offseason, then I think there was an opportunity for J.J. McCarthy to start week one, ended up tearing his meniscus, which he, by the way, had no idea. He woke up the next morning with swelling. They went in and they had to surgically repair it, which is a 3 to 6 month recovery time. We're beyond that point now.
Yeah, well beyond that. Way beyond
So
it.
my guess is, how rusty will he look because he's not out there practicing, every single
I would
day,
guess
most
he's
likely.
practicing on his own, right? He's out there throwing the ball probably every day, I would think.
I would hope so. I would very much hope so. So I think that right now, are the Vikings making mistakes saying at this current moment J.J. McCarthy will be their starting quarterback? My answer is no. I think right now this all falls. It's a mistake if you're stuck with a tier 4 guy like, I don't know, name one. I'm not going to say Kirk Cousins because the Falcons, they're saying they're not going to get off him. But Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, any one of those quarterbacks out there, if you decide to take him and then J.J. McCarthy's not ready, let's say the Steelers steal Rodgers, and McCarthy on April 7th does not look good, looks very rusty, and you're like, okay, we need a quarterback, and you're stuck with Jameis Winston, Joe Flacco. I don't know how confident you'll be entering that season or entering the offseason where, okay, our veteran, they said they want to get a veteran quarterback regardless.
Yeah, well,
but Rodgers has an opportunity because he was just with the Jets, didn't look that great.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the Vikings, their running back situation, I think, is a little bit more stable.
Aaron
Your
Jones.
head coach situation is beyond stable because you just signed to a big extension.
Yeah.
Your offensive line needs a little bit of an improvement, but it should be healthy. Christian Darrisaw coming back.
You have a great wide receiver.
Phenomenal wide receiver with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkins as your tight end, and you still have Brian Flores as your DC, who had one of the highest blitz rates and the highest pressure rates of any team last season.
The defense is good.
So Rodgers should be in a perfect place to succeed because the Vikings right now are the only situation, I believe, where Rodgers doesn't need to be the savior. He was the savior on the Jets. That was a massive mistake. It was just like Brady going to the Bucs. While he had phenomenal clutch moments, especially those first 2 years, that last year with Tampa, he could not exactly be the difference maker. He had to go along for the ride.
They had no running game.
And no running game. Their passing defense was
their
abysmal.
offensive line had injuries.
Correct. So Brady didn't need to be the savior. He had some saving moments, but Brady's career, you saw it in the last year of New England, 2019. Their defense carried them to the first half of the season and got shell-shocked by Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. That might have been a Monday night, but Lamar destroyed Belichick's defense in that game. And then we saw it in the playoffs. They couldn't stop Derrick Henry, and Brady couldn't score against Tennessee's defense. So Brady went to the Bucs. Wasn't that savior necessarily because they went 7-9 the year before with Jameis Winston throwing 30 picks. So if Rodgers can go to a situation where he's not the savior, and I think that is Minnesota, I think that the Minnesota Vikings could not exactly replicate a 14-3 season, although maybe, because again, it's Sam Darnold we're talking about. Rodgers could do some damage, I believe.
I think that
and potentially win the NFC North.
The Vikings situation is one where they have a good overall team, a very good overall team, right? And they had that last year. Sam Darnold went there, really his last chance to prove he could be a starter, and he succeeded. He was lucky that he got the opportunity when McCarthy got hurt.
Right.
And he did well in that system, but I think it's a system. I think that
I agree.
And I think O'Connell plays a big role in the success of the quarterback because look at Cousins.
He was having an MVP level year before he tore his Achilles.
Right.
And also Josh Dobbs came in and put up a couple
He
good
did
games in
okay
that
too
system as well. So,
and Darnold did great. Darnold was on his last chance and he did great.
I agree.
I think they feel very confident that they can get a lot of good play and high caliber play out of McCarthy.
And speaking about J.J. McCarthy, let's go to our next topic here, which is right here.
The Minnesota reportedly turned down multiple trade offers for the former number 10 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. Are you surprised the Vikings are moving forward with McCarthy?
Not at all. I'm not really that surprised because he was projected to maybe be the starter. I know there was a report out there, there's several reports out there that Sam Darnold might have started week 1, but we don't know. Because after that first preseason game where J.J. McCarthy was the highest graded passing rookie quarterback, he had 64% complete, rounded up to 65. It was 64.7% completion percentage, 188 yards, 11.1 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. He was the highest rated overall quarterback and the highest rated passing quarterback in that only preseason game. I think it was lining up beautifully for McCarthy to succeed. And honestly, it fits into the system. You just talked about the system because in Michigan, it was all running game and heavy defense. In the 40 games he played, he averaged 155 passing yards per game. He had 49 touchdowns, 11 picks, a completion percentage of 67.9. So he wasn't really told to do everything. And that kind of is what Kevin O'Connell's system is. You don't need to really do that much. I know Sam Darnold kind of just, you could say, went along for the ride in some aspects because their defense was incredibly dominant, especially early on in the season. Their running game was pretty effective with Aaron Jones. You got TJ Hawkinson back. You have Justin Jefferson. You have Jordan Addison. You have a very good structure there for a young quarterback to succeed and at least to grow. I don't think J.J. McCarthy, with Sam Darnold being the starting quarterback, can learn much. And this is my argument about the Jacoby Brissett and Drake May thing. Why put a rookie why have a rookie quarterback sit behind a veteran quarterback who doesn't know how to win football games? Now, Sam Darnold shocked the world. Nobody. That's why the Vikings, I think, were projected to win 6.5, 7 games last year. Nobody thought Sam Darnold would have the season he had last year. And now here's my question. Why can't J.J. McCarthy at least get close to it? I'm not saying win 14 games, but if your system relies heavily on just the pieces around you and you making smart decisions, which J.J. McCarthy did with Michigan, that's why they won the national championship, being undefeated, with a very intelligent head coach in Jim Harbaugh, you have one in Kevin O'Connell, then why can't you at least get the Vikings this season to at least being close to double-digit wins? I think right now nobody's expecting J.J. McCarthy to go out there and replicate Jaden Daniels because the Jaden Daniels run was very impressive. Incredibly athletic and mobile, phenomenal passer, had some great clutch plays late against the Philadelphia Eagles, against the Dallas Cowboys, against, against the why do I think Cleveland Browns? The Chicago Bears, where they had the Hail Mary throw. Jaden Daniels had incredible moments. I don't think anyone, especially after you're tearing your meniscus, to go out there and put up a massively productive season and go to the NFC Championship game. So if I'm the Vikings, I'm not surprised at all because we have this 10th overall quarterback here who definitely showed a bunch of flashes. So if I just have a system in place, if I keep building up my offensive line, if I got Aaron Jones still, I have Justin Jefferson still, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Brian Flores is still my DC. I do not know, or I can't really comprehend why you would have little to no confidence going into next year after what just transpired with, at the time, because I always have to preface this, because again, we didn't know up to you know what the season turned out to be. You had Sam Darnold as your projected starter in 24. You were definitely under. You were projected under 10 wins last year, far beyond 10 wins, far below 10 wins. And you went 14-3, and week 18 you were playing for the number 1 seed in the NFC. J.J. McCarthy, I think, could get close to that 10, 11, maybe even 12 wins. If he just plays within the system, he plays as effectively as he did with Michigan, you have an intelligent head coach, and you have tremendous talent on both sides of the ball. I'm not surprised whatsoever the Vikings decided to stick with their 10th overall pick.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100% on this. And I'm not surprised, that he was drafted in the first round. And you don't draft somebody in the first round and use that pick unless you expect them to be a leader of your team, a long-term factor in your success. And that's what they want for J.J. McCarthy. And I think the thought of bringing in Aaron Rodgers, what does that say to McCarthy? I think that's a factor they should take into consideration too. If I were him, I'd say, "What the hell are they doing, bringing him in here?" I don't think that means that they don't have confidence in me, and I think that's a factor they should strongly consider. As we mentioned, he played well in the preseason last year. Would have been the starter, I think, if he hadn't gotten hurt. We mentioned this. Diana Rossini says that the Vikings have not completely decided McCarthy will be the starter, wanting to see where he is both mentally and physically this spring. And April 7th is the key date before they finally decide on Rodgers. The Vikings, as we said, they've got a strong team, both offensively and defensively. Overall, they've got most of the weapons that they need in place, and they've got a great head coach in terms of molding quarterbacks. Look how well Sam Darnold did going 14-3 with the Vikings in 2024. They let him go in the free agency, and he wound up with Seattle. And I think they let that happen because they're so high on McCarthy. They may look at that and say, we would have likely started McCarthy last year if he hadn't gotten hurt. So letting Sam Darnold go in free agency and knowing how well they molded quarterbacks in recent years, Cousins, as you mentioned, having a what would have been maybe an MVP season before he tore his Achilles with the Vikings. And Darnold, the way he played when he was just a journeyman, and this was really his last chance to prove he could be a starter. And now he winds up with a $100 million contract to play 3 years in Seattle. The weapons on offense, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Jones. There's a good chance McCarthy will have success, and the plan drafting him in the first round was always for him to be the long-term starter. It was just delayed by injury. They are very high on him after drafting him at number 10. That's obvious. Now that he's healthy, the excitement appears to be enough to allow the Vikings to say no to Aaron Rodgers, at least for the time being. And I think that Aaron Rodgers sees the handwriting on the wall. 6 hours today with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear about a contract with the Steelers coming up here shortly. One thing about McCarthy that's interesting, I read, he's light right now at 208 pounds. At the combine, he was 219, so maybe he's lost a little muscle. And he's going to have to put that on before the preseason starts. They still got plenty of time, before they get to preseason. I think the Vikings think they're in a good spot, whether or not Rodgers is with them or not. They've got McCarthy. And then the question is, who is that backup going to be to McCarthy? There isn't anybody besides Rodgers that you bring in that where McCarthy would say, why the hell's this guy here? You don't have confidence in me. I think signing someone like Flacco might be okay, right? Flacco's a good passer.
Flacco would be
he's a statue.
Fine.
He's a statue in the pocket, but he is a good passer.
He went up against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense last year when it didn't hit that wall and outplayed Justin Fields at the time and then ended up beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think Joe Flacco definitely has his moments, and this was also a quarterback that after every quarterback dropped like flies with the Cleveland Browns, he came in, won Comeback Player of the Year, made it to the playoffs. So I think Joe Flacco, he could still play at a decently good level.
As a backup.
Yes. Yeah, I would say that if you need him for 2 games, he could give you a solid 2 games. Can he be the starter for 17? No. He comes in, for a couple games. If your quarterback goes down and you need a guy to fill in for a few games, sure. He could come in and do the job.
So he might be the perfect choice.
I would probably say so. And I'll also say this. They upgraded their center already. Garrett Bradbury, they let him go. They decided to sign Ryan Kelly. And they also upgraded their guard position because they got Will Fries as well from free agency. So they're upgrading their offensive line, which at the end of the season, when Darisaw went down, it regressed to the 27th best pass-blocking offensive line. So I think right now the Vikings are moving in a very good place. You still have, your year 2 quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. You should feel very satisfied. You added just a 1,000-yard rusher. You signed him to an extension in Aaron Jones. So my guess would be you're going in there next season, and you're going to be, I'd say, fighting like hell. That's what I think, because there's not much turnover, especially offensively, where it matters the most. You still have Naylor as well. That's your wide receiver 3. So I don't expect the Vikings to all of a sudden hit this wall and completely fall apart. I don't think they're going to go from 14-3 to fight for the last seed in the NFC North. I think they're still going to be fighting for that 1 or 2 spot next year. I think the Packers, they're going to stay relatively around the 10-win spot. I don't think they're going to all of a sudden jump both the Vikings and the Detroit Lions. I think the Bears, they're still a very interesting team because what's Caleb Williams' next spot? They upgraded the interior of the offensive line. People say you now have a legitimate head coach in Ben Johnson, who was extremely creative when he was with Detroit, but he is a first-time head coach. The defense should remain somewhat the same. It wasn't the number 1 defense like it was through the second half of the 23-24 season, but it was still good enough. Mm-hmm. Running game should be better because the interior of the offensive line, you could not run inside. I still have a problem with the 2 tackles, Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones. However, we'll see how they perform. You still have DJ Moore. You still have Rome Odunze. You still have Cole Kmet. You have some pieces there. But I do not think the Vikings will all of a sudden hit this wall next year and fall apart like some teams do. You have to wonder
a little bit about the Lions, too, with both coordinators taking head coaching jobs. I wonder whether they're going to be able to do as well in terms of the strategy and all of that, losing Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson.
Well, that's another thing. How are the Detroit Lions going to do without a mass part of their coaching staff. Because they didn't only lose their offensive and defensive coordinators, they also lost some positional coaches as well. One of which is currently the DC, the defensive line coach, is now the DC of the New England Patriots. So you're losing some very, very key parts of this coaching staff. So we'll see. And I'll also put out there, the Vikings are tied for the 5th hardest schedule entering next season. They're currently projected to go up against 9 playoff teams that made the playoffs in 2024. So we'll see what J.J. McCarthy or Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. We'll see what the Vikings do. But I think, no, the Vikings should have all the confidence in the world with J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, let's go into our next topic here. This is going to bring back some memories of the show from last year. Go for it. Yeah, topic 3.
Topic 3. Sports Illustrated came out with an article saying it will be a massive mistake if the 49ers lucratively extend Brock Purdy. What should the 49ers do with Brock Purdy, Nate? I know how you feel about Brock Purdy, so I got to bring it up. Say.
You're going to let him play out the rest of his contract. You're not going to give him $60 million, and I think after this season, that idea is out the window. And while, yes, it's horrible that your team got hurt, right? We could blame Brock Purdy's lack of success on players getting hurt. This is exactly why Purdy shouldn't get $60 million. Because we've seen top-tier quarterbacks lose some of their top-tier playmakers and still find levels of success. What happens when your top wide receiver and top target on offense goes down? You become bottom of the NFC West, a weakened NFC West. So are we sure Brock Purdy is the guy to be making $60 million or close to $60 million per year? I don't think so. Not only that, I think the 49ers are in a soft rebuild. They let 17 players go. And some of the key playmakers, especially on defense, which has been their claim to fame since 2019 when they made the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, might I add. Hufunga's gone. He went over to the Broncos. I think that's a phenomenal move for them. Dre Greenlaw's gone. He went to the Broncos as well. They lost Hargrave. They lost Leonard Floyd. They lost Travarius Ward. These are some key playmakers on defense. They lost an interior offensive lineman. I mean, and you know what? Who'd you sign back? Pinnock, who did nothing with the New York Giants. Mac Jones to be the backup. Richie Grant as safety. I mean, the pieces that they picked up are not, one-for-one pickups. And I don't think they're particularly close. So I think there's a high likelihood, really high likelihood, that the 49ers might be near the bottom of the NFC West again. And I think that right now you have to wait and see what Brock Purdy is again. Because, yeah, Brandon Ayuk went down, but you still had Deebo Samuel, who right now the Commanders are going to, I think they're going to use Deebo in a very effective manner. The Commanders are. And when it came to the 49ers, he was really the only key piece that you had. Because Ayuk went down, Ricky Pearsall got shot, so he wasn't exactly ready. George Kittle still was, based on passer rating when targeted to, he was the number 1 target in the NFL. He had over 136 passer rating when targeted to, I'm pretty sure. But no, I think right now the 49ers need to see what Brock Purdy is without the greatest depth in the NFL probably in the last 25 years. Because they had talent every which way you looked. Christian McCaffrey, by the way, he's going to be the X factor of this offense. It really has nothing to do with Brock Purdy at all. It has everything to do with Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy is just the guy who makes it all kind of come together. But Jimmy Garoppolo did that. Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy have the exact same accolades. Made it to 2 NFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl, because obviously you need to make it to the championship game to get to the Super Bowl. So if you want to call it 1 Super Bowl and 1 NFC championship game, they did the exact same thing. And in fact, if you look up, and then this is going to be crazy, people are going to get mad at me about this, yards per attempt in the 2000s, or it might be yards per completion, but regardless, the number 2 guys, 1 and 2, are Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. 1 and 2. So, again, this is all the system. It's Kyle Shanahan's system. And also what fits into Kyle Shanahan's system beautifully is injuries. We take a look at some of the previous 49er teams. They are banged up badly. Like, there are wasted seasons in Jimmy Garoppolo's tenure with the 49ers where there was nobody healthy. where the offense was banged up, the defensive line was banged up. Nick Bosa missed a bunch of games. Trent Williams went down and missed a bunch of games. But that's kind of what the 49ers are. Last season, Christian McCaffrey couldn't play. So Brandon Ayuk out for the year. Deebo Samuel was your only target. Really, your only primary target. Ricky Pearsall had a couple nice games. But I said in 2023, the 2023-2024 season, that the MVP of the league should not be Brock Purdy because he basically goes along for the ride. You look at some of the throws that he made. People love to do this. The throws that he made. You take a look at some of those games. There's not a defender on the screen. And we're like, oh yeah, he has such great accuracy. The guys are open beyond belief. There's half a football field between them and the next guy. And might I add, in this previous year, this is why. You're not going to give a guy $60 million on a down year. Out of quarterbacks who had at least 200 pass attempts in 2024, Purdy ranked 25th in terms of catchable percentage. That accuracy that people always talk about. 25th in catchable passes. His target percentage ranked him 32nd out of 39 qualified quarterbacks. So he was inaccurate. His decision-making was off. He apparently was very bad at catchable passes this year. So, no. I think right now I completely agree with Sports Illustrated's article. The 49ers should not give Brock Purdy $60+ million a year just because he's the next guy up. Did we really make Deshaun Watson? Was he the standard for quarterback contracts when they gave him $230 million fully guaranteed? No, we had to wait until this season when Dak Prescott signed his $60 million a year season, where he surpassed that at $231 guaranteed. Deshaun Watson was a bad contract. Everybody understands that. And I think if we take a look at the weight that Dak Prescott's contract has, where he's making the most the quarterbacks ever made by $5 million average annual value, we're going to take a look at that. And if he doesn't make it to an NFC Championship game or win a Super Bowl, we're going to be like, why are you paying Dak Prescott $60 million per year? That's going to be a bad contract. Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love. We can understand why maybe Jordan Love will get that contract because he was the first 7 seed to make it to win a playoff game. And also, he went toe-to-toe with this 49ers team in the rain. And if it wasn't for, a couple plays here and there, a couple dropped interceptions, the Packers may have won that playoff game against the Niners. Trevor Lawrence won one playoff game and a comeback against the Chargers. Those were two questionable contracts because we didn't really see much in terms of long-term success, but yet they got paid. Joe Burrow's makes sense. He made it to the Super Bowl and also was the only quarterback at the time to disrupt the Chiefs. Brock Purdy, and I thought there was a number out there earlier this year about the 49ers start with $45 million. I think that might be a touch high. I'd go around the $40 million range, but exactly right. Purdy's not a $50+ million quarterback because he goes along for the ride. And we saw last year when he doesn't have all his weapons out there, he's kind of just a decent quarterback. He's not the guy who's going for MVP. Mm-hmm. He wasn't even the conversation from day one. Yet people were fighting about the prior year until Lamar decided, you know what, let me just take this conversation over and destroyed him. So 49ers should let him play out this last year. And if he does show levels of success that he had 2 years ago and wins the NFC West, then you can be like, okay.
Franchise tag him.
You could do that as well.
That's probably what it would be. Well. He won't be too happy about that.
Who cares? He's the last pick in the draft. There was a reason for that.
And you look at what the 49ers got out of him since they drafted him at the last player taken in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. He took him to the NFC Championship game in his first season when he came off the bench to replace all of injured quarterbacks. And I think they would have won that game against the Eagles if he hadn't gotten hurt. I mean, he actually came out and played with his tendon in his elbow torn.
He couldn't throw it.
He couldn't even throw it, but he did come back into the game. And then the next season, he took him to the Super Bowl. Right, and in the Super Bowl, he played great. They were behind the fourth quarter. He brought them back, gave them the lead. They couldn't hang on to it, and they got him the lead in overtime, and they couldn't hang on to it and lost the game. So it wasn't on him at all. He had a very good game in the Super Bowl. And this past season, he had a down year for whatever reason. There were injuries on the team, but I guess not having CMC was a big blow. Ayuk being out for this, getting hurt with his ACL was big, And, there were some other injuries on the team as well. It just didn't perform that well. And they've had seasons, the 49ers have had seasons like this where they followed up, good success with down years, and then they bounce right back. So chances are that this is going to be a bounce year for them. And
oh, God, the bounce years. You remember the Bryce Young, your bounce quarterback?
That's right. So I think that Brock Purdy's done a lot for the 49ers. And I guess memories are short, right? Because now when they said they were going to give him a big contract, now you don't hear so much about it. There hasn't been much talk at all. They haven't heard much of anything. Maybe they're busy with other things right now. I don't know. But the three factors that they got to look at is his performance, what they've got for money to pay him, and what the potential is for future quarterback options out there. I don't see too many. I think that some argue paying a high price for a quarterback that was drafted is Mr. Irrelevant, is risky, while others believe he's a valuable asset worth investing in based on the total package, what he's done for them since he came off the bench a couple of years ago and took him to the NFC Championship game and then went to the Super Bowl with him and played very well in that game. Nobody could criticize Brock Purdy for being the one that cost them that game. It was their defense. I'd say that given he had a down year in 2024, the 49ers have got the leverage. They can stand firm and give Purdy what he's worth. Right now it looks like, as you say, maybe mid-40s. Maybe he gets to $50 million. But if he refuses, they'd say, now in this day and age, I guess what you've done for us in the past for next to nothing. He played for almost nothing. Last year he played for $1 million. Nothing. I think they've gotten their value out of him for sure. If he refuses, tough luck. He can play out his final year of his contract, and guess what? If he plays really well, we're going to really reward you. We're going to give you the franchise tag, and then you're playing for 1 year on a high salary, but it's just 1 year, no assurances, no guarantees, nothing. That's really treating him well, huh? After leading his team to the Super Bowl in 2023, his regression in 24, I think it's somewhat alarming. If the excuse is that he didn't have his usual stars, it only cements that he isn't worth being paid lucratively. That's what Sports Illustrated said. The scary part about his regression has been his decision-making. He was erratic with it. Good decision-making is by far one of the top traits a quarterback must possess, especially in Kyle Shanahan's offense. He needs his quarterback to make the right decisions. Well, every coach needs that. All Shanahan needs from Purdy is to work within the structure, and that's what you say. It's a system type offense. He's the game manager of the offense because it's a quarterback-friendly one. Instead, Purdy, on many occasions, last year anyway, he forced throws and led to turnovers or wasted a down. The 49ers can't give him an extremely high guarantee and salary coming off a poor season, or it sets a bad precedent, right? Other players who've had good seasons and then they have a down one and they're up for a contract, they'll want to be treated the same. So they can't set a precedent of a big extension regardless of performance. So the 49ers have gotten a good deal, I think, as I said, overall, from a quarterback who they've paid almost nothing, who took them to the NFC Championship game and might have won it if he hadn't gotten hurt. Then he played in the game while he was hurt. I think he gets a lot of credit for me for that. And then he took them to the Super Bowl, got them to the lead in the fourth quarter when they were behind, and also the lead in overtime. And so the loss was not on him. Given that he hasn't made any money yet in his NFL career, he's been to the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. I think, if I were him, if I got an offer of $50 million and I'd never made any money, I'd take it. I think I would take that offer. That would let the 49ers off the hook a little bit for not giving, someone big contract after a down year, so he wouldn't be setting a precedent. And you know what? He's young. He's still what? How old is he? 25? 25 years old?
Brock Purdy is 25.
25 years old. He's young.
He'll be 26.
And maybe he
December.
gets 3 years. 3 years at 50 a year, 150 million. $100 million guaranteed.
$50 million.
You know what?
To be
And if he plays well,
train car.
if he plays well, then he's going to be up for another big contract. He's got plenty of time for more big contracts. So I'd say if the 49ers offered him high 40s, low 50s, just 50, I would. If I were him, I'd take it.
Are we sure again that he's worth that money?
Well, look at some of the other quarterbacks and what they've got. Trevor Lawrence,
who hasn't had anywhere near the level of weapons that Brock Purdy has.
Daniel Jones,
who never had any weapons, period. He made $40 million.
Deshaun Watson.
That was the stupidest contract in NFL history, arguably.
I mean,
Although I don't
of
think
the
it's
big contracts, the ones who've performed, Lamar has performed, right?
Won several
you could say
MVPs.
He's earned his money.
Absolutely.
Joe Burrow.
Made it to a Super Bowl.
Joe Burrow has performed.
Just put up 4,900 yards.
Jalen Hurts, I'd say
won a Super Bowl.
Won a Super Bowl.
Made it to 2.
Yeah. So those contracts, is there any other big one out there? Oh, Dak Prescott, he got hurt. He didn't play.
Jared Goff
But he didn't
has a
play
high
that
contract.
well. He didn't play that well.
Jared Goff.
He's
earned
done his
very
money.
well. Justin Herbert has not.
I would say
he has not. Justin
Herbert hasn't, and Josh Allen has earned his money.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And he got a.
So most of the ones
that
got the big money have earned it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But we have to realize that Brock Purdy right now, he's a train car. He's not the conductor. He's a passenger. That's what he is right now. He's chilling in the 5th seat. That's what he is. Because if we look at who's the most valuable player or most valuable people in the San Francisco 49ers organization, it's Kyle Shanahan, it's Trent Williams, it's Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy.
Okay, well, I think there's one other factor that comes into play here, and that's team culture. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, last player drafted in the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sits on the bench, the number 3 quarterback. Everyone else gets hurt.
So.
Comes in, plays phenomenally. Didn't lose a game. He didn't lose. He did not lose a game.
Right. But
gets hurt in the NFC champion. Takes him, wins 2 playoff games for them. Maybe he didn't play the greatest in those 2 playoff games, but they did win. He didn't cost them the game. Didn't make any critical mistakes. Gets to the NFC championship game. Early in the game, he gets hurt. Badly hurt, so he couldn't even throw the ball. Goes back into the game and plays the game, okay? The next year, takes him to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Takes him to the Super Bowl, right? This past year, he a down year for him, admittedly, and there were injuries on the team, but the guy he's a team player. He's a team player. You don't hear him complaining. You don't hear him in the news doing something stupid. I think he's a quality guy. You look at his career so far, he's come from nowhere to be in a position to make a decent contract. Maybe I don't think he should get $60 million for having that down year. He should have forced their hand right after the Super Bowl.
Oh.
That would have been a better move.
Then he would fill into the category of not being the greatest of guys if he's forcing a contract.
Now that they've forgotten all about everything.
Exactly.
They've forgotten about everything that he's done for them. They're treating him poorly.
It's a business.
It's a business, I agree. But they said they were going to give him a big contract, and now they're waffling.
Whoa.
They did. They said they were going to give him a big contract. The owner said it.
Right.
Said we're going to take care of Brock. He's going to be fine. You're going to sign him to a long-term deal.
Well,
they haven't done it.
Could be more than $1 million.
They have not done it. They have not done it.
Right. And we actually heard.
How does that make him feel? Huh?
I'm the last pick in the draft. I performed way over where I was drafted. I'm going to be grateful that I'm even still a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, right. And look at some of the Trevor Lawrence getting over $55 million to perform the way he performed last year. Brock Purdy's season was head and shoulders over Trevor Lawrence's.
100%.
And he played for $1 million.
Correct.
He got $1 million.
I think it probably was, $900K. So
yeah, something
I don't
like
even
that.
think it hit 7 digits.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said for what you've done for our team and our franchise when you look at Brock Purdy's contract. And I do think
you could say the same thing about Jimmy Garoppolo.
I don't think he should get $60 million. I don't think he should get $60 million, but should he get $50? Yeah, I think maybe.
He did. So once again, he's done legitimately the exact same thing as Jimmy Garoppolo. And in that first season, after Garoppolo went down, since Christian McCaffrey got there, him and Brock Purdy had literally identical numbers.
Jimmy Garoppolo got good contracts when he was with the 49ers.
At one point, he was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, right. So it's not like he was treated poorly.
But that was like $27 million.
Okay, but things have changed. I mean, that was a long time ago.
Correct.
But it was the highest paid quarterback at one time in the NFL, right?
Yes.
And deservedly so.
Whoa, deservedly
so.
Right.
He took him to the Super Bowl. He took him to the NFC Championship game. How about the game in Green Bay? You know, the game where there was no way they were going to win that game. It was so brutally cold. And they beat Aaron Rodgers.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
those things you should remember.
I will say
remember those.
While Jimmy Garoppolo in that Green Bay game didn't do anything to cost his team the game, he did start that game off 0 for 7. So it's not like he was doing anything to help them succeed.
They won the game.
Correct. No, correct. And I picked them to win at the time, which was an absurd take because it is Aaron Rodgers' MVP year in Green Bay. It was freezing cold, which Rodgers excels at, freezing cold weather. And they somehow pulled it off, and it was a special teams thing as well. But to say that Brock Purdy needs to be the highest paid quarterback, no. Because, like I said, you put in Jimmy Garoppolo.
I wouldn't make him the highest paid quarterback.
You put in Brock Purdy.
They were talking about that, but you don't have to make him the highest paid quarterback. He's still really young. You could give him another 3-year contract at $50 million a year. That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
$50 million is a lot of money. That puts him in the top. That puts him in the upper echelon of quarterbacks, and the 49ers would save face there too.
Well, and here's my follow-up to that. What if Brock Purdy says no?
Well, then that's up to him. That's up to him. He can play out but if he plays out his contract, right, and he does really well, he gets screwed again. They'll franchise him. And then he only gets 1 year.
But hold on.
Then he only gets 1 year. He'll get a lot of money, but he only get 1 year, and that's not fair.
Well, it's a business. Hold on.
But it's not fair to him. I don't think that's fair.
What if? Well, the franchise tag was made for the exact reason why the Daniel Jones situation was abysmal. He had 1 good year. You pay him $40 million. You'll regret that decision week 1 of the 23 season. That's why the franchise tag was made. For situations where you have a player who plays really well one season.
Well, then they blew it. They should have put the franchise tag on him and given Saquon Barkley the contract.
I think everybody would agree with that. Correct.
They blew it, and those guys still have their jobs.
But this is why. What if Brock Purdy has another down year when the 49ers don't have Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Christian all of that? What if they really need Christian McCaffrey and Christian McCaffrey's not the CMC that we know? Where you could go out, hand in the ball 25 times, have him catch 10 more passes, and score a touchdown every game.
How many quarterbacks had great seasons that didn't have any pieces around them? It didn't have good players or elite players around them. Well, how many? Which ones?
I hate to say
Which ones?
Lamar Jackson.
Come on, he had Derrick Henry.
You're talking about this year. I'm talking about over the course of a career.
No, I'm talking about just 2024.
2024,
yeah. Who had a great season that didn't have good key pieces with them on offense?
Okay, well, they were defining key pieces here.
Yeah, key pieces. Okay, Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson.
Are you talking about offensive pieces or defensive pieces?
Offensive pieces.
Okay, so Justin Herbert with the Chargers. Quentin Johnson can't catch a pass. You and I can maybe catch more passes than Quentin Johnson.
Justin Herbert didn't have that great a season.
It went 11-6.
But that was more about the coaching and the defense than it was about
offense.
Justin
Herbert. You talking about offense? Who did well?
I'm talking about offense. I don't think
Bo Nix in the Denver Broncos.
Okay, he had Sutton. Right?
Okay, Christian McCaffrey.
He had Mims. Mims played well.
Brock Purdy had Debo. If we're just going to list off guys who were pretty good.
Debo had several games where he was hurt.
Right, but
hurt 2 games.
If we're just talking about guys who, define bad. At Debo's level, what are you calling the 49ers offense then? Garbage?
No, it wasn't.
They still
garbage.
had Trent Williams. They still had George Kittle. They still had Deebo Samuel. So if we're saying, okay, who did nothing?
The running game was actually it was okay. The running game was okay with the.
It was above average
replacements.
Okay, yeah. If we're saying the 49ers have no talent.
No, I'm not saying they have no talent.
Then how about this? They lost talent. They lost even more.
Yeah.
Because they lost an offensive guard.
No, but they have.
They're getting older. Their defense is gone.
No, but they have Pearsall now, and they have who's here? Jennings. They have Jennings.
Jennings, perfectly
right?
fine piece,
Yeah.
but he was there last year.
And he
had 1 or 2 good games.
Maybe they draft another wide receiver.
But hold on, we do have the rest. The 49ers defense was the reason why they were so successful, especially with Jimmy Garoppolo. 95% of their defense is gone. They lost their starting cornerback, their starting safety, a couple of their starting linebackers, a couple starting defensive tackles. So if the reason why the 49ers were so successful is because of their defense.
Okay. Let's take another angle at this.
Sure,
okay?
go for it.
Who are they going to get if they diss Brock Purdy and he winds up leaving him next year? Who would you say the 49ers' next quarterback will be?
Well, this draft. Well, you have to tell me what
they're
pick
going to draft a quarterback in this draft.
Correct.
They're not high enough up the list to get anybody who's any good.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Who's around next year? Are they going to bomb this next year? Are they going to play for 2 wins so they get to pick a quarterback and let Brock Purdy go?
Well,
I don't
the 49ers
think
currently
that's
have
not their strategy.
Based on the projection, they have the easiest schedule
who would
in the
replace
NFL.
Brock
I'm gonna
Purdy?
say
Who's
that.
better than him? Who's going to be better than him?
A lot of quarterbacks are better than Brock Purdy.
But who's available quarterbacks? Who's going to be available?
Let's just go based on draft projections, and let's say the 49ers, even though they are projected to have the easiest schedule in the NFL next year, let's say they do the same exact thing. They go 6-11 because all of a sudden now they either get banged up or Brock Purdy's not as good. Let's just say that for the hypothetical situation. Because if we look at the draft right now, the 49ers currently have the 11th overall pick. If we're just playing God for a second and say the 49ers have a top 3 pick in the draft, and let's say they have the 3rd overall pick, and the first 2 teams don't need quarterbacks. Arch Manning. Arch Manning would be perfect.
That's a long shot.
What do you mean long shot?
That's a very long shot. A bird in the hand's worth 2 in the bush. Brock Purdy's done enough in his career so far to warrant a decent contract.
I'm not
It
saying
doesn't have to
pay
be the
him
biggest.
pennies.
Doesn't have to be the biggest contract out there. Doesn't have to be $65 million and what people were talking about before. But a good contract, something close to $50 million a year, with good guaranteed money in it. I think he'd sign it, and he'd be smart to sign it, and it lets the 49ers off the hook a little bit.
I'm not saying pay him pennies. I'm just saying $60 million or even $50.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Right.
But I think you know what, if he doesn't take it, plays out the year, he winds up with next to nothing again for a year, right?
Well,
and then he winds up with the franchise tag.
The franchise,
so that's only 1 year more. That's only 1 year
probably
deal.
Going to be around $45 million.
Yeah, but it's just 1 year.
So
he could if he signed a contract for 3 or 4 years at around $50 million a year, that'd be a lot better than playing out the 1 year and then being on the franchise. He's a loser if he plays great because he winds up on the franchise tag, and that's only 1 year.
I agree.
So he'd be better off. Don't play. I wouldn't play out my contract. I'd try to get the contract and accept a little less money. $50 million is a lot of money. I'm sorry. I would like somebody to offer me $50 million.
That'd be pretty nice. That'd be pretty nice.
Yeah, I'd take it for just 1 year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, Stefon Diggs met with the Patriots Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to talk about that, whether or not he'd be a good fit, as well as the St. John's Red Storm win their first NCAA Tournament game since 2000. We're going to talk about that game and what to expect Saturday against Arkansas and John Calipari. We'll talk about all that right after this break.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show, which is...
We have Stefon Diggs, right? 5 months removed from tearing his ACL. The 31-year-old former one-time Texan visited the Patriots on Wednesday and left without a contract. Fox Sports' Jordan Schultz reported that Diggs' visit was more about get to know you and where you're at medically type of meeting. Would Stefon Diggs be a good fit in New England, Nate?
Absolutely. This would be the first time since Wes Welker they have a legitimate threat at wide receiver. Because Julian Edelman wasn't anybody that you game plan around. So you still need a game plan around him. He was getting put up 1,300, 1,400-yard seasons. First of all, the last 1,000-yard receiver they had was Julian Edelman in 2019. It's 2025. They have also had the worst supporting cast group since probably 2019. 2020, they were throwing out, Marquise Lee out there, I'm pretty sure, with Cam Newton as the starting quarterback. Then you followed up with a decent surrounding cast with Kendrick Bourne, but you spent so much, and Jonnu Smith was making a bunch of money, but he never came into fruition how they wanted him, or how he was back with Tennessee. There were a bunch of pieces that you spent money on that did nothing. And then in 2022, you got nobody. You got Tyquan Thornton, who was a big bust, and you kept him for 23 and kept him for 24. And you followed it up with Baker and Polk, who did nothing this past year. Nothing. So they need somebody. OBJ said if Tom Brady stayed there, he would have signed with the Patriots. Chris Godwin opted to re-sign with the Buccaneers and take less to stay on the Buccaneers. You missed out on Cooper Kupp. You missed out on DK Metcalf. You missed out on Deebo Samuel. You missed out on DeAndre Hopkins. I can keep going. The list keeps going on and on and on and on. And in fact, there was an opportunity in this free agent period to go out and sign massive free agents offensively, but you couldn't get it done. And while we look at the free agent signings that you've had so far, these are some of the notable ones. I agree with a bunch of these because these are massive gameplay playmakers, excuse me. Milton Williams had a good year with the Philadelphia Eagles, but he only played, I think, 48% of the snaps or less last year. So you're giving him a massive amount of money and hopefully, probably projected that you're going to obviously play him much more. Carlton Davis, I thought was a great pickup for him because Jonathan Jones is out the door now. Carlton Davis is a great replacement. I thought Jonathan Jones the year before, you should have gotten rid of him. Robert Spillane is a tackle machine. Harold Landry, I think, is a good pass rusher. The New England defense fell apart last year. Garrett Bradbury, because you released David Andrews, great pickup. You replace him with Garrett Bradbury. Mac Hollins, he's not a playmaker, but sure, I guess you're adding pieces at least. Morgan Moses, offensive tackle. You had the worst offensive line. I've always said this. Outside of Mike Owenu, you couldn't name another Patriots offensive lineman. And then Josh Dobbs to be the backup quarterback because you're projectedly going to trade away Joe Milton, which I actually don't love. Unless you can get I think your asking price is like a 3rd-round pick. If you could somehow get that from a 7th-round pick, by all means, or a 6th, 7th-round pick, by all means, go and do it. But I actually think the Patriots free agent signings are really good. The prices are a little bit questionable, like giving Milton Williams $104 million over 4 years. But he was about to slip to another team, so you came and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pay you a bunch of money. They did have the most cap space in the NFL, and I hope they do go out and sign more free agents. I don't think you should be done. You got to go out and sign guys. And I think in the draft, if he's available somehow, I would get Travis Hunter. And I would play him, you could probably play him at both positions, but don't make him your cornerback 1 or 2. You would probably put him as a nickelback. Get Marcus Jones out of there. Please, for the love of God. He's a 5'8" guy who keeps getting mossed left and right. He's a shifty guy, absolutely. And I think he can make some spectacular plays in special teams, and even I would use him a little bit on the offensive side as well. But he should not be your starting cornerback or starting nickelback ever. He's too small. He's not much of a he's not much of a playmaker defensively, where you could put him out there and he could lock somebody up. So I think, Travis Hunter could fill into that role during certain formations, and he wants to be a two-way player. This is how you make Travis Hunter a true two-way player. But I think right now, the way the Patriots are built, you need somebody. Stefon Diggs had 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons, combination of Kirk Cousins mixed with Josh Allen before getting hurt tearing his ACL when he was at the Houston Texans, and he didn't put up great numbers, 47 catches, 496 yards, but we do have to realize he was also on a team with Joe Mixon, Tank Dell, as well as, I'm forgetting the other receiver's name, Nico Collins. So there was talent all over the place, and Dalton Schultz, the tight end. So there was talent all over the place for Houston. Now, the majority of that talent ended up going down with injuries, but there was a bunch of talent. There's only one football. You can't get every guy the ball. But the fact that New England and Stefon Diggs are at least meeting, and finally a receiver is at least talking to the New England Patriots instead of shutting them down like Brandon Ayuk did, and as well as Chris Godwin turned them down as well. The fact that a receiver, a good receiver, a very good receiver, is at least open to joining New England, I think this is massive, and I think he'd be a pretty good fit in New England because they desperately need a legitimate threat in wideout.
Yeah, well, the meeting, they say, was mostly about assessing his where he's at mentally and his recovery from the ACL tear. He did leave without a contract. He may wind up back with the Texans. They're talking about re-signing him because Tank Dell, that injury he had was so severe he may not make it back this year. And they need somebody to be the complement to Collins. And before Diggs got hurt, he was doing quite well with them, averaging 62 yards a game. He had 3 TDs before he got hurt in Week 8. I don't know if this is such a good option, Nate. The recovery from ACL can affect performance in the return year. Plus, Diggs can be somewhat of a disruptive force as he was in Buffalo. I don't know if things don't go his way, he gets all upset, and it's out there in the media that could be a negative factor on the Patriots, who made many changes this past year, and it's kind of a reset for them now. Pats have a goal of bringing in a wide receiver one, and as you've said, they failed miserably, right? They tried to bring in Calvin Ridley last year. They couldn't get that
That's another
done.
guy, there's another guy turned away.
And they would have made offers to Higgins and Godwin if they hadn't returned to their other former teams. How come they didn't get DK Metcalf? Maybe they should have had a chance at him, but that didn't happen. So they re-signed Austin Hooper, and they signed Matt Collins. That's what they've done at offensive receivers so far. Can you bring up that list of their free agent signings? Where are the offensive linemen? There's only one on there. How come there aren't more?
Two. Garrett Bradbury, the center from Minnesota, and Morgan Moses from the Jets.
Yeah, okay.
They signed Bradbury, I think, today or yesterday.
Okay, so 2. That's not so bad. And Joshua Dobbs, 2 years, $8 million. I don't know. I think they're afraid Joe Milton might be better, might be a threat to.
That's a hot take.
Yeah.
That Week 18 game, though.
Yeah, he might be a threat to May, and they don't want that. The way he played, man, he played well in that last game of the season, which they never should have let win. They would have had the number 1 pick in the draft, but so be it. So their receiver core right now, Kayshon Boutte, who I think is credible. Kendrick Bourne, who, I don't know.
Interesting.
He's okay, I guess. Demario Douglas is okay.
That's the best receiver. Who, by the way, led the. I can't believe. Let's get 2 box here. I can't believe this is a true stat. Ready for this? Led the Patriots in 24 with 66 catches. Guess. I don't know if you have the number there. Many yards? Guess how many yards he had. Led the Patriots by
650.
621.
Not bad. Led
the Patriots in receiving.
Yeah.
That's how bad.
Yeah. Jalen Polk, who we both know can't catch a ball, and Javon Baker, who never really did anything. You mentioned Diggs has 6 consecutive years of 1,000 yards and averaged 62 yards per game in 8 games with the Houston before he got hurt. I think the Pats, I think Diggs is a question mark. I'm not sure I'd go for him. I think the Pats should draft a wide receiver at number 4. Matthew Godwin's out there, McMillan is out there, or maybe Travis Hunter, as you mentioned. Then I think they should go and try to sign Tyler Lockett. He's not an elite player, but he's a dependable veteran who could also set a good example for the Patriots' young wideouts. He wouldn't be a long-term solution because he's 33 years old. But in the short term, he would add depth to a receiver core that's desperately needs more talent, and I think he would set a very good example, and I like him. I think he's a quality receiver, still has gas in the tank. So that's what I would do.
This is classic Patriots, though. It doesn't matter if it's Gerard Mayo. It doesn't matter if it's Elliott Wolf. It doesn't matter if it's Mike Vrabel. It doesn't matter if it's Bill Belichick. Whoever controls the roster is defensive focused. And I'm sorry. We already saw a situation where they built up on defense and you carry your defense. That was the 2023 New England Patriots, who went a solid, beautiful, 7th overall defense, who went 4th and 13, who put up, what was it, 0 points, 3 points, whatever it was, against the Los Angeles Chargers. You held them to, I think, 6 points, but I don't think you scored a single point in that game. So it doesn't matter how great your defense is, because at some point they're going to hit a wall. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers thing. You try to run the ball effectively with tough defense. At one point, your quarterback needs to step up, and I think Drake May has a lot of talent. I'm
surprised.
But get him
I'm a little surprised.
I hope it's not Mac Jones 2.0. Great number one. First of all, turnover issues with Drake May this year. Mac Jones didn't really have that in his rookie year. But don't let this be the 2022 New England Patriots Part 2, where your offensive line isn't great, you have no weapons, and your defense starts to deteriorate. Now, you bolster your defense very nicely, I think.
But did they really need to do that, though? I think that
Yes.
the defense under Belichick
so.
in his last year, mostly the same players coming back, underperformed this past year. Could Mike Vrabel get that kind of performance?
Kyle Duggar was terrible.
Couldn't he get that kind of performance out of that? They've basically given up on the defense they had. And they could have, why couldn't they have said, you know what? It was a down year for those guys. It was because of coaching. Let's bring back most of those guys again and see if we can get the kind of performance out of them that Belichick got out of him in his last year, rather than using all of that free agency money on the defense. They to put more on the offense. They didn't look at that. Defensive tackle, cornerback, linebacker, outside linebacker, right? And there's 2 people on the offensive line, which is their worst thing. And, a journeyman receiver, Mac Hollins, and Joshua Dobbs. I don't know where they decided to get him. Hopefully he won't get into a game. I don't understand it, Nate. They went for the defense again. You should be all upset about this. This is a Belichick. This looks like a Belichick move. Right? Exactly.
Am I satisfied?
Absolutely. Mike Vrabel's a defensive guy.
I'm not satisfied, absolutely. But I also have to realize that the way that the Patriots play this and just how the situations turned out, New England at that time was a somewhat desirable position. Now, because they didn't have Tom Brady, it wasn't, I can go play for like Derek Carr or Tom Brady. I can go play with like an aged Big Ben or Tom Brady. It wasn't like that. It was, I'm going to play with Cam Newton / Mac Jones. And now it's, I'm playing with a broken Mac Jones. And now it's, I'm playing with Drake May, who is a cool quarterback, but he's going into year 2. New England has become a barren wasteland for talent. Nobody wants to go there. I saw a report by, I think, Tom Curran that said that New England is considered like Siberia. Nobody wants to go there. The conditions are horrible. The coaching is tough. They're not winning anymore. At least when they were winning Super Bowls, you go there to potentially finally get a ring. That's why Darrelle Revis came over to the New England Patriots.
Well, they spent all their money, free agency money, on defensive players. Again, when their offense is terrible.
Their
offense is terrible.
It's garbage. But the fact that players are actively seeking less money to not play in New England.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think that they could have landed some of these guys with big money. They spent all the big money on the defense.
I think Chris Godwin took $20 million less to go back to the Bucs. They were going to probably give you T. Higgins $30 million. He technically turned down less to stay in Cincinnati because he's making 28. So it just so happens that New England now has become a place that nobody wants to go to.
Well, that's why they should do it through the draft.
Well,
they should have used their free agency money on offense, more on offense, not so much on the defense. They had good defensive players. That defense proved that they could be good. It just needed better coaching. Mike Vrabel should be the coach that could do it. He's a Belichick disciple, played for him for many years.
Well, they desperately needed a defensive back with Jonathan Jones gone. I don't hate the Carlton Davis move. Milton Williams is a great defensive tackle. You've been complaining about their pass rush since, 2007?
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
They haven't had a good pass rush in years.
No, it's true. But Barmore was out last year. Maybe he'll be back.
Godshaw's already gone.
Godshaw's gone.
Keon White didn't do much.
Yeah, but he's still with them.
Right, but he didn't do much.
Yeah, but that's the scheme, man. They got the coaching. He's got to get the talent out of that guy. He's got the talent, right? The linebacker core. What they brought in linebackers. So don't they have? Don't you think Juwan Bentley is a good linebacker, right? Yeah, and who are the other linebackers?
Tavai was terrible.
Tavai
was terrible. Last year, Tavai was terrible. But
the year before, he was very good.
Well, currently, guess what? Milton Williams is now a starter. Harold Landry, starter. Over, by the way, Juwan Bentley. Keon White. Keon White has now been relegated to being the backup. Juwan Bentley still a starter. Robert Spillane, an instant starter. They also brought in Clavon Chasen. He's a backup. Carlton Davis is a starter. And I hate looking the fact that Marcus Jones is still the starting nickelback. He's, 5'8"? He's fast. But he gets mossed every time in single coverage. He's not a good defensive back.
All right, well, we'll see what happens to the Patriots. Okay, so we're all excited about the St. John's Johnnies. The Red Storm dominates Omaha in the round of 64 with the 83-53 win over the Mavericks. The 30-point win is the largest margin of victory in the program history for the Red Storm. They will move on to play the number 10 Arkansas Razorbacks, led by John Calipari, a Hall of Fame coach, and they're upset over number 7 Kansas. What's your reaction to St. John's massive win over Omaha, who are senior who at St. John's right now? Nate.
I am. I thought it was great. I wasn't worried. I know some people might have been shaking in their boots about early in the game because they went down 7-0. I was like, okay, they can't hit a shot for the life of them. And in fact, Omaha was giving them the 3. Every single time they were going under screens. And eventually they started hitting them. Take what they gave you. If life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And what the St. John's Johnnies did, the Red Storm did, was they shot 14 threes. And in fact, in this game, they did something that is largely unseen in that program's history. So based on, they've had 60 tournament games in the entire, program history. This game versus Omaha, the ranks amongst their program's history in the tournament. This is where they ranked. Tied for the 6th most points they've ever scored in the tournament. The 4th fewest points they've ever allowed in the tournament. They've made the most threes by 4. The record was 10. They now made 14 in the tournament. Their offensive rating was the 2nd most ever for them in the tournament. Defensive rating was the 3rd most. The opponent field goal percentage, the 2nd lowest they've ever allowed. And then 3-point percentage, Omaha shot 13.9% from 3. That's the lowest they ever allowed. The defense was on point. This is a defensive team. And eventually they're going to start hitting shots. Right now, R.J. Lewis is on an insane streak. As of late, he's scoring 20-plus points in 6 of his last 7 games. He added 22 for this game and near a double-double. He had 22 points and 8 rebounds. Zuby Ejiofor, phenomenal down low, and that's really what other teams are trying to figure out. How do you stop Zuby Ejiofor from dominating in the post? Because he had 31 points the game before the Big East final against Marquette, and then in Creighton, he didn't do as well, but R.J. Lewis stepped up with 27 points in the second half and took over that game and ended up being the MVP of the Big East championship. So right now, I'm not worried at all. I'm really not. Going up against Arkansas, the only thing I'm worried about is the Pitino versus Calipari matchup, because against each other, they're 2-2 in the tournament, and Calipari right now is beating Rick Pitino, 13-10 overall record. So he has the upper hand. And right now, I'm taking a look at that matchup, and I'm saying, well, what needed to happen for Arkansas to upset Kansas? Well, they were up, and then Kansas came back. And then Arkansas needed a 15-5 run with 3 minutes to go in the game to finally beat Kansas. Kansas went ice cold. St. John's is not going to allow that, and especially in the second half, which is what this team is, they're not going to allow that. They were down massive points against UConn. The reigning back-to-back champions came back and won. They've been down in massive parts of this game, massive parts of the season. And they've come back and won in insane fashion, whether it's a buzzer beater, whether it's just dominating in the second half. They were down 7-0 in this game. They went on a 10-0 run at one point. And by the way, those 7 points were the biggest lead Omaha ever had. And that ended with 16:55 in the first half. So St. John's just took over in the second half. You led as much by 30, and that's what the game ended on. And that's what's interesting. They shoot very poorly. Entering the tournament, they were the 18th worst three-point shooting team in college basketball. I think there's 364 teams that qualify for this, they were the 18th worst. And the fact that they come out here and shoot 14 of 37 from three, almost 40% from three. R.J. Lewis coming up big with 5 of 8 from three. Simeon Wilcher shot 50% from three, massive from him. Davon Smith, 2 of 6. Aaron Scott, 2 of 6. Ruben Prey even had a 3 in this game. So the fact that the Johnnies are playing like this, I'm very confident in their ability to at least really give Arkansas a massive pain in the back. That's what I think. I think right now the Johnnies are playing at an insane level. I think there's an opportunity for them to go against Arkansas in the round of 32, take over, and then move on to the Sweet 16. But right now, this game against Omaha, this was the definition of a St. John's basketball game, and that's why they are so confusing. The first half, they're like, how the hell is this team going to win? And the second half, by the time that quadruple zero hits, they're up by 25 and they win. Like, that's just how they play. If they just get to their because they couldn't handle, they were getting out offensive rebounded in the first half, which is really unheard
24 offensive rebounds for Omaha.
They've only been out rebounded offensively, I think, 7 times all season.
Yeah, Patino was not happy with that.
Excuse me, 10th time all season they were out rebounded on the offensive boards.
So I look at the game. I was a little worried there at the beginning. They couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with their shots. They missed the first 5 in a row. And Omaha got up 7-0. And they took a timeout, and they came back and scored a few points. And then it was kind of back and forth for a while. But they could not get a rebound. They couldn't get the offensive rebounds by Omaha, 24 in the first half. It's amazing. They didn't have any in the second half. St. John's, on the other hand, 15 for the game. I didn't remember seeing 2. I don't know where they get 15 offensive rebounds. I never saw. I would say, why can't they get an offensive rebound off a missed shot?
We got breaking news, just so you know. We got. Keep going. We got breaking news.
Okay. Defensively on the rebounds, St. John's very good. 32 defensive rebounds to Omaha's 21. Assists, 21 assists for St. John's, 10 for Omaha. And fouls, pretty even, 15 for Omaha, 17 for St. John's. Final score, 83-53 with a blowout. I wonder, the field goal percentage for Omaha, 25.7%. Is it because it was St. John's defense? Certainly that was a big factor, but maybe Omaha just can't shoot the ball. I think Arkansas is going to be a much tougher game. John Calipari is a very high-quality coach. He just had an upset over one of the ranked teams, number 7 Kansas. I think this is going to be a shootout game, man. It's going to be. Well, if it's a shootout,
St. John's may lose.
I think it's going to go right to the wire on this game. I hope I can stand the stress of this game coming up, because I think it's going to be very close, and I'm hoping the Johnnies can pull it out, because I got them going to the Final Four. If they can get by this one, I'm pretty sure they can make it to the Final Four.
Well, I'll say this again: Arkansas needed to go on a 15-5 run to upset them, and that's in the second half. St. John's doesn't do that. St. John's is a second half team through and through.
I think the one thing that St. John's has got is that stifling defense.
They have phenomenal rotations.
It's interesting that with that defense so good last night, the turnovers by Omaha, only 7 turnovers.
Yeah.
St. John's had 8.
Yeah.
So I would have thought they only got on the stifling defense. They really didn't get many turnovers from it. Right. I mean, it was effective. And those guys are in such good shape. I mean, they are in.
It's the fewest amount of turnovers that they ever forced all season. The fewest.
Yeah.
This is a team that thrives
and their
on
defense
turnovers.
looked phenomenal. It looked great, and their stamina in playing that defense basically the whole game is really quite incredible. And that might be a factor for them against Arkansas too. That stifling defense. So I can't wait for the game, man. It's going to be great. You look at the scoring, pretty balanced, except R.J. Lewis having 22. Zuby 10, Scott 6, Richmond, who I thought I didn't see him get these 10 points. I don't know how he got them. He had 8 rebounds too and 6 assists. So overall, he had a pretty good game, but it was a quiet one. Wilcher, 13 points. If he can keep playing like that, it'd be great. Smith, a quiet 8 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He's a good player too. I like him a lot. and he's not a starter now, but I do like him
should
coming
be.
off. I like him
should be.
coming off the bench.
He's dealing with a shoulder injury.
So
That's why.
go Johnnies.
I'll say this right now. First of all, and I'm glad you brought that up. Simeon Wilcher, while he's my guy, interviewed him in 2023. 2023. He's not a good defender. Davon Smith has a speed to get around. Like, if guys try to get past Simeon Wilcher will just foul. Davon Smith could use his speed and athleticism to keep up with Omaha or with an Arkansas guy.
Wilshire looks to be more just a shooter. He didn't have any. He didn't have any rebounds. He had 2 assists, no steals, no blocks. So you're right. I think Smith is more the
he's
total player than Wilshire.
Absolutely.
And Smith can hit the 3.
Right, and I was about to talk about that. St. John's went 42% from 3 in the second half. They went 8 of 19.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll also add, phenomenal free throw shooting, 11 of 15.
Yeah.
But here's going to be the X factor, and it's obvious when we just take a look at the numbers. Arkansas is ranked 279th on offensive rebounds. That's, again, out of 364. St. John's is ranked 4th in the nation.
They didn't show it last night.
St. John's second chance points were 28. If they could do that against Arkansas, again, the game will look similar to this game against Omaha, where St. John's just blows it out.
It'll be a lot
in the
closer
second half.
game than the Omaha game.
It should be, but I'm taking a look at how they play, and the way St. John's wins is through tough defense, really tough and smart defense, offensive rebounds, second chance points,
and lately 3-point shooting.
No,
they've
haven't
improved their 3-point game phenomenally. Well, what it was like last year, they couldn't hit any of them.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the breaking news here. We have a quarterback move.
Oh.
According to Jordan Schultz, Jameis Winston is finalizing a 2-year, $8 million deal which could be worth up to $16 million with the New York Giants.
Oh.
So it looks like Aaron Rodgers will probably not be the starting quarterback in the New York Giants, and the Giants probably have their quarterback one. Probably, I'm saying. They could draft one at the number 3 spot if Shedeur Sanders drops and the Browns don't draft him. But it looks like Russ, currently still unemployed, which again backs me up with these quarterbacks are more sought after than Russell Wilson.
He's going to Cleveland.
Probably at this point, yes. But that doesn't mean they have 4 quarterbacks on their roster, which again, the Browns are one of the worst run organizations in the NFL. But it is official. According to Jordan Schultz, Jameis Winston is now the starting quarterback of the New York Giants for the foreseeable future. Give me your quick reaction of Jameis Winston.
I like
Jameis.
Jameis Winston. I just wish he wouldn't throw so many pick sixes. You know, his throwing. He had some good games with Cleveland last year, but then he fell apart throwing interceptions again. Somehow they got to fix that riddle of him. If he could just fix that, he would be a mainstay starting quarterback in the NFL because he's got a great arm. He's a good team player. He's good for the culture. He's athletic. I just think he has the tools. He just can't not throw those interceptions. He's got to be smarter about that. Somebody's got to solve that riddle with him. It was Sean Payton had figured that out with him, but he got hurt and didn't play a lot of the season when Sean Payton was the coach. So if they could go back and look at the tape of how Winston played when he was with the Saints, maybe the Giants will have some success with him. I hope so. I like Jameis Winston.
What's interesting is that Tom Pelissero just tweeted out that, quote, now they add Jameis Winston on a backup deal, giving them options as their pursuit of Aaron Rodgers continues, and they weigh what to do with the number 3 overall pick. Signing Jameis Winston, being at the number 3 overall pick, I feel takes them out of the Aaron Rodgers deal.
I would think
because
so.
Now, again, but Joe Schoen, people want to complain about Joe Schoen's ability to be the general manager. Here's what I'm thinking when it comes to that. You will now have a cheap quarterback, which you could call your starter, and you would draft a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
Instead of giving Aaron Rodgers $35 million to be your quarterback for 1 or maybe 2 seasons.
That'd be a mistake. I would stick with Winston and draft a quarterback.
Because, again, Jameis Winston's not going to save Daboll's job. Rodgers is not going to save Daboll's job. Both the head coach and the general manager, with the hardest schedule in the NFL, they're both going to be gone. Whether it be at the end of the year, whether it be at Thanksgiving, whether it be after week 4. They are probably going to be gone. And Mike Florio just confirmed, this does not change the Giants' pursuit of Aaron Rodgers or alter any other possible quarterback routes. I disagree. Because, yeah, you signed Jameis Winston on a 2-year, $8 million deal that could get up to $16 million, and you already have Tommy DeVito. Why would you go spend $35 million on an old quarterback? It's the same argument that I've always had with Rodgers. You have no offensive line. You have one actual weapon, no running game. Your defense should be better. You signed some very key pieces on defense. But right now, you have a cheap quarterback. You have a cheap starting potential quarterback who had his moments with the Cleveland Browns, had a very nice opportunity.
With the Buccaneers. Hit 30 touchdowns.
Also 30 picks.
30 picks.
Right, and also had 14 touchdowns, 3 picks in a few games under Sean Payton.
Yeah, not that bad. 14-3.
Coming off a season where you have 30 interceptions, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
That's
and
pretty
they
good.
were winning, too.
Right. And I think right now, one thing that the Giants haven't had is a guy who could be that deep ball thrower. Danny Dink and Dunk, as I call him, that's all he did was try to, dink and dunk the ball. Jameis Winston does not give two damns. He'll let that thing rip, which obviously puts the ball in harm's way more. So I think that you have a potential playmaker at the quarterback position in Jameis Winston. You get him at the cheap. You also have Tommy DeVito if you want to go that route. You have the number 3 overall pick. You have a lot in place to take a step forward, not a step back.
Yeah, with Aaron Rodgers. I think
because
would be a step
Rodgers
back.
is not going to go out there and save the franchise. That's what you're looking at right now. You need a player to save your franchise. Rodgers, if you put that on him, he doesn't move. He's not mobile in the pocket anymore. You have no offensive line. You have Evan Neal right now still as a starting offensive lineman. I don't care that you moved him to guard. It's Evan Neal. He can't pass block. He can't run block very well. He's not a good offensive lineman, and you kept him as a starter. So I think right now it's a good enough move. I think he should be your starter, my opinion, week 1, because it doesn't change anything. Tyrone Tracy's still your starting running back. Although I will say there's an opportunity to draft a couple running backs in this draft. The running back class is very deep. The wide receiver class is not really that deep. But you can go out there and get Shedeur Sanders. You still have no running game.
I think they should trade up to make sure they get one of those 2 quarterbacks.
You have no tight end. Your offensive line's still a mess.
They should trade up to the number 1
Your
spot.
defense is fine. You fixed your defense. Deontay Banks still needs a lot of work. He's not that great. And Tyler Nubin wasn't bad. But Paulson Adebo, he's not a bad pickup. Holland was a pretty good pickup in my opinion. Like you still have Kayvon Thibodeau, you have Brian Burns, you have Bobby Okereke. You still have Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah.
There's pieces there. Your offense always was the issue because actually statistically,
sounds like the Patriots.
Statistically, the Giants' defense was really good in pass coverage. But they couldn't stop the run for the life of them. They were 27th against the run. You kind of bolster your passing defense with Adebo, and with Holland. But there's an opportunity for the Giants. Hey, I'm going to throw this out here. And maybe it's a completely stupid idea. Maybe it is. Who knows? Let's say they get Aaron Rodgers. Let's say the Giants do something like get Aaron Rodgers. So they have Aaron Rodgers and Jameis Winston. That 3 spot, I think they trade back. Only a couple picks. No, hear me out. I think they trade back a couple picks. And here's actually what would be great in fixing the run defense aspect. Mason Graham of Michigan. That guy, or screw that. Don't even trade back. Get what's his name?
The Penn State guy.
Oh my God, Abdul
Carter.
Yeah, you get him as well. Because if you have the quarterback situation, the number 3
So
pick
you're just
is,
saying draft the best player available.
I think right now, yeah, that's what the
Stay at 3 and draft the best player available.
If the Giants decide to go get Rodgers and they have Jameis Winston, Rodgers says he wants to play for a couple of years anyway. So you have him for a couple of years, and that actually lines up beautifully with Arch Manning in a future draft. So if you want to go that route, you can. So if Rodgers plays,
I thought he was going to San Francisco.
Well, that was that talk a while ago. That's if the 49ers fall apart. I don't mind the move. But to say that, like,
I don't think they should go with Aaron Rodgers. I think the Giants, they should understand we're in the rebuild mode here again. And it's just the coaches and the GM don't want that because they know they'll lose their job out of it. So
I don't mind the move.
I think the ownership should know. Let's Jameis Winston, I think, is a good move. Let him start and then draft. Make sure you get one of those 2 quarterbacks and build from there.
Because the Giants, they've never really taken a step forward into progression. We've always seen them perform a little bit. They perform nicely, and then years of regression. Perform nicely, and then years of regression.
You look over going back to Eli Manning, the last few years of his career at the Giants, and then what they've done since. There've been a lot of dry years, man. It's been a long stretch here, not very good. Right?
In the last 10 years, can you tell me how many double-digit win seasons they have?
2.
1.
11-5
in 2016, where they lost in the wild card round. That was the OBJ yacht situation.
Oh yeah,
where he couldn't catch a pass for the life of him. Yeah, that was that year. McAdoo's first year as the head coach, by the way.
Yeah.
And then after that, it went from 11-5 to 3-13. I don't mind the move, but right now you have a cheap quarterback that you could start. I don't know why you go get Aaron Rodgers, spend $35 million, because guess what? You could have saved that $8 million for somebody else. Yeah. I don't get it. It's always good to have breaking news. I wish it was Aaron Rodgers, but no. Jameis, hey, at least there's a chance that the New York door is shut, potentially. The reports are it's not. I think it should be, but there we go. Jameis Winston is officially signed. Again, backing up my mic keeps glitching out. Backing up my Russ claim. Jameis Winston, and now apparently Ryan Tannehill, which we learned during the break. Ryan Tannehill is now getting looks. Or what team was that for, by the way? I meant to. Was that the Giants? Do you remember what I told you about the Ryan Tannehill look?
No, Ryan Tannehill was the
Vikings.
Vikings, yeah.
Again, Russell Wilson is on not even the back burner. He's around the corner.
I don't think the Vikings should pick up.
Right
I don't think the Vikings should pick up Russell Wilson. They should hand the keys to McCarthy and have a backup that's non-threatening. Go with Flacco.
First of all, Ryan Tannehill would be that guy.
Yeah, that's true.
Think about it. Will Levis kicked him out of the building, and Will Levis right now might get kicked out by a rookie. It's crazy. Any other breaking news before the show ends? I don't think so. If not, we'll end the show here. Yeah. It looks like we're going to be done here. It's always exciting to get news at the end of the show. So we'll be back Tuesday. We'll see if there's any more Aaron Rodgers news we're probably going to be talking about for the next month and a half, so get ready for that. Always excited to talk about the most polarizing figure in the NFL. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been your co-host of the Harvey Hour. You can catch us Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Go Johnnies and good night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.